All right. I'm Jay Donovan. I'm a longtime freelance writer for TechCrunch. I've been covering mostly mobile technologies and emerging technologies for the blog since 2009. But I also do a lot of other things. I've had experience in retail and in payments. And so today, we're going to talk about exploring mobile marketing and advertising ramifications of mobilizing social media. And we're actually going to talk about a couple of other things, too. But first, I do want to introduce our panelists. And basically, I'm going to introduce them and let them tell you about their companies briefly, because they'll do a better job than I will. But we have Brian Wong, from the CEO and founder of Kiip, Chix Foxgrover, who's the Chief Digital Officer at the 4As, Peter Wexler, who's the Senior Director of Business Development at Visa, and Susie Kim Riley, who's the CEO of Aquto. So, Chick, why don't you just briefly, we'll go down the line and explain what your companies are about super fast.
4As is the trade association for the advertising agency businesses. We cover creative and media agencies, everything from digital, the group that creates brand experiences, everything from creative digital experiences to placing ads in the various networks around. We also work with a lot of different trade associations on certain industry issues, advocacy issues in Washington, and industry issues around measurement and the like.
Okay, Susie?
Hi, my name is Susie Kim Riley. I was sort of the MC earlier on, but I'm also a panelist. I'm the CEO of a company called Aquto. We're a Boston-based startup, really focused on what we call sponsored data and data rewards. So what we enable marketers, such as publishers or brands, to do is use mobile data to actually engage with users on mobile. So we enable people to do things like use apps, even if they don't have a data plan, or use an app and it doesn't count against their data plan, or do things like give users additional buckets of data that they can use to consume any kind of content. So we work with some of the largest carriers, including AT&T, Verizon in this country, and then abroad we work with the major carriers in LATAM as well as in Europe. And we work with some very big brands as well on the publisher side. And that's what we do. We try to bring the ecosystem together.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? Yeah, stoked. I'm Brian, the co-founder and CEO of Kiip. Kiip is a surprise and delight rewards platform that's in 5,000 apps. What I mean by that is you can do something in your app that you already have in your phone, kind of live your life, do whatever, and in that moment you might be doing something relevant. A brand can surprise and delight you with a reward. So an example could be finishing a run in a running app, to crossing off a to-do in a to-do list app, and then being rewarded with something appropriate. So I think finishing a run would be a Gatorade, and crossing off a to-do could be a free subscription to the New York Times. So we kind of wanted to create this value exchange model, but using serendipity as the main way of interacting. And Susie's model and our model have very interesting parallels, and we're really excited to share more.
Pete Wexler with Visa. We are a payment network.
Who's Visa?
Right?
This company used to
Say what?
One of those.
It's a little-known company called Visa, V-I-S-A. So we're a payment network. We sit between your consumer bank, your Chase account, and the merchant's bank, the retail or restaurant's bank. Let's say Bank of America Merchant Services, right? So we help enable commerce to happen. We are kind of that middleman transaction broker. We do about 150 million transactions a day. Our network supports 25,000 transactions a second. There are about 2.5 cards per people in the United States that have Visa embossed on them, and 3 billion cards worldwide. So small payment network, but growing.
Yeah.
So.
All right, well, before we get into the details, I feel like we need a little icebreaker, right? And I'm going to ask everybody what their favorite app is, right? Because I think it's important when talking about mobility, I think it's important to know what's on people's minds. And in the old days, you used to share your LP record collection. You was like, hey, what's your favorite LP? Or your cassette. When I was a kid, what's your favorite cassette? So this is the analog these days. Like, what's your favorite app and why? And I'll start it off to kind of, I'll just start it off. And my favorite app that I'm watching right now is one from my hometown of Columbus, Ohio, which is called Root, R-O-O-T. And it's an insurance app, right? This is really interesting to me. What these guys did, all these people left some of the bigger insurance companies, and all the actuaries did, and they came up with this concept where they were like, hey, the iPhone has this accelerometer, and it has all these ways to track your athletic motion. Why don't we just have people turn that on and drive around for like 500 miles, and we'll get a sense of the data that they're giving back to us will let us give them a better insurance quote, because we're going to have a feel for how they are as a driver. And it's really easy for them to do. They don't have to get a device like Progressive, and put it on their car. It's just a casual way for them to share data. And data is a big part of our conversation, so that's kind of why I wanted to bring that up. So Root, interesting startup. So what about you? What's your favorite app?
Lately, it's been Spotify. Because it now has a feature that allows me to download my music onto my phone. As a New Yorker, I'm always going in and out of connectivity. It can never be assumed. So whatever app I'm using has to be able to work on and offline at a moment's notice. So right now it's Spotify. Amazon does the same thing, a few others. But
That's good. Susie?
I actually couldn't decide. There's actually
a billion apps out there.
I know. I must. Well, so I'll tell you about a couple of my favorite apps. So actually, I love, and this is going to sound really strange, but my Bank of America app. Okay. And it's because I really hate going to bank branches, and so I use this app to do everything. And it's just saved me so much time, and I actually delight in taking pictures of the front and back of the checks, and I just do the mobile deposit, and I get a little kick.
Basically saying she's been doing a lot of that lately.
Right.
No.
You want to tell us more?
Okay, Susie.
No,
All right, we got it.
But so that's actually a really, I think, a very good app, just because it just saves me so much time, and it's a huge convenience factor. And then the other app that I really like, and it's got nothing to do with, most of this stuff, but it's actually a really cool app. I have a dog, and we like to bring our dog everywhere, and it's an app called Bring Fido, and it tells you about where to find like dog-friendly restaurants and dog-friendly hotels and
Ring Fido?
parks. Bring Fido.
Bring
Yeah.
Fido, okay.
And I think there's probably like better or similar apps out there. This is just the one I happen to find, and it's kind of handy.
That's cool. That's cool. Utility, real utility there.
It's a utility, right? And so.
What about you, Brian?
Tinder. Yeah,
Right.
and in all, it's a serious answer is WeChat. So we've been doing a lot more business with companies in China, and it's basically the WhatsApp slash everything, like Slack, like everything combined for most Chinese folks within China, and then it's got a great user base outside. But WeChat had, for example, conversational commerce as a norm 3 years ago. And Facebook just started to roll out chatbots. So if you want to see the future in sort of conversational whatever, go to WeChat. And you can send money. They have their own currency. It's insane. So it's pretty badass.
Yeah, and as cognitive, bots power more and more of those kind of chat engines, especially when you think about retail.
I heard about you could chat with Ctrip, which is their version of Expedia, and buy a flight by just saying, I want a flight from San Francisco to LA, tomorrow, 9 a.m., and they'll do it automatically. Easy. It's crazy.
It's magic. All right, what about you, Pete?
So I'm a big fan of data and quantified self. So I use Runkeeper. So I may not look like I may not look like I run like every day, and I certainly don't run every day, but I do run quite a bit, right? And I use the app to keep myself honest, right? So it's like if you've used it, I'm sure, right? So it's going to tell me, it's going to remind me and say, hey, today would be a good day to run, right? It's like because I have taken too long between my last run. And it's telling me my pace, and it's telling me my distance, and I'm, keeping track of how far I run every month, yada yada yada. So, it's my training partner, right? So, that's something I use, if not every day, 5 days a week. So.
Well, considering the news from Apple yesterday about the Nike, I don't know if you saw the new Nike specific Apple Watch Series 2, they would you consider switching, to, they make it so easy that the deal with it was like, hey, all you have to do is know when to run, and instead of like syncing up with your phone and doing all this stuff, it's supposed to be super simple to just like start running. So would you consider it? No Apple.
So, my mobile device is everything, like everyone, right? It's my alarm clock, it's my training partner, it's my music. I don't need another device today on my body. And yeah, no, sorry Nike, but your shoes don't fit my feet very well. I got wide feet, so yeah, I'll probably stick with what I have. And it's interesting. I think for all those apps where you volunteer a lot of data to, the question then becomes, what's the cost to exit, right? Like, if is Nike going to ingest all my data and do it properly? If not, do I want to give up that data? Right? Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting question for a lot of different apps and experiences.
Let's ponder that. Let's come back to that in a minute, because that gets to one of the things we're going to talk about, data, right? And the original synopsis of this is, how is leveraging social and data creating more opportunities to bring consumers what they want without sacrificing consumer privacy or subjecting them to unwanted communications? But for this conversation, we've been thinking about this for a while, and we're going to focus a little bit more on data, a lot more on data than as much on social, because data comes to us from a lot of different channels. It may come to us from social or mobile, social on mobile or mobile or web. The data is one of the key parts, and so we're gonna talk a lot about that. As a framework for this conversation, though, we're gonna look first of all at people's needs, then technology, then data and how it personalizes, and then we'll talk about some value proposition. So you might notice that everybody mentioned some apps here. And a parallel was they all kind of did something for everyone, right? They told them, they gave them something they needed to listen to, helped them calculate a run, helped them know where they can take their dog or get utility out of banking. So that's really important. First consideration is need states of consumers and people, right? And data doesn't do that much good, I think, if you don't know what you need to use it for people, right? Forrester calls it post, people's first, technology is always at the end of that funnel. But so, that being said, for that framework, who are some brands, I want to know where your guys' heads are some brands that are really paying attention to customer needs first and foremost, before we think about data and what how you do things for them, who's understanding people's needs? And we'll go down this way, and then the next question will come back this way. And Chick, is there anybody?
Sure. Well, I love the Bank of America story, because what we're seeing, even from the advertising perspective, is that brand building is really starting to move towards a greater balance of brand experiences. So the brands that are, really doubling down on a lot of this are people like the airlines and the hotel chains. So Delta and JetBlue, Marriott. And to your point, the more better those experiences are, the stronger the loyalty is to that brand. So I don't really, I always think of Delta first, because the app experience really helps me through my travel experience. I had to travel a lot recently to many different cities and things like that. I could always keep track. I could upgrade my seat. I could do all sorts of things. And we're noticing that those brands are not just throwing these things out there and leaving them, that they're increasingly updating them, adding new features, doing sort of an Amazon-like iteration to increase the functionality and the smoothness of those apps. So I think those guys are doing a good job.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I have an interesting story in that, we're working with operators worldwide, and in Brazil, actually, one of the biggest banks there enabled people to actually use their app without incurring any data charges. So in a country like Brazil, more than half of smartphone users actually don't have data connectivity. And this has become a big problem for a lot of marketers in that country, where people are just spending a ton of time on their mobile, but they don't have connectivity. So what they did was actually what we call zero-rated. They did the sponsorship of all of the mobile traffic for their app. And it made it hugely convenient for people, because they didn't actually have to go to these branches anymore. But the ROI on that investment was tremendous. It was 300% for that bank. And I thought that was really understanding the user, realizing that the user really would prefer to engage with a mobile experience versus going to an actual branch. And I thought this was a great use case where you understand what the consumer behavior is, and you're going to come up with a creative solution. Because otherwise, you normally wouldn't think of a banking app or a bank thinking, I have to engage my consumers over mobile.
Right. What bank was it? If you can say, or are you allowed to? It doesn't. Okay, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's the biggest bank in Brazil.
Okay.
Yeah, or just use the app in Brazil. So kind of segueing from what Chick was saying, by the way, best name ever, is I think the whole thing of addressing needs is basically what brands' products do all the time. So we work a lot in the CPG and QSR and retail world, and your products and your services always are designed to address needs. That's why consumers will buy from you. One of the things I found, and we kind of gave it a term recently, is we call it marketing as a service. And we're seeing a lot of marketing become service-based mechanisms and apps as one of the products, but many more to come, including chatbots, whatnot. And I'll kind of explain a couple examples. The first is Marriott. So Marriott recently released their new app with a text-based concierge. And more hotels and whatnot are going to get into this whole, I don't want to call you or go down to the concierge desk. I can just message you in the app and then blah, blah, blah. That's actually marketing because you're going to be spending more money. You're going to be arranging for more things and transacting more with the hotel, which is really clever. So that's the first example. The second is the big elephant in the room, which is Amazon. So Amazon, has just brilliantly executed. I'll just pick one example of many things that they've done, but of course with Alexa and with Echo. Echo, if you guys have seen the data, I was blown away by this. They took 25% of the market share of all the new speakers sold last year. With a thing that actually isn't actually a speaker. It's Jeff Bezos in the corner of your room listening to everything you're saying and then taking all your money. And the thing about Echo and Alexa, though, is that it's a service, but it's marketing as a service because it's enabling you to transact. It's, again, giving you this experience, which I think brands are now more and more responsible for creating. And I promised that was the last one. It isn't. This is actually last. Is Under Armour acquired 3 apps for $500 million, Endemano, MapMyFitness, and MyFitnessPal. They realized that their day-to-day presence with the consumer was lacking. Yes, you might wear their clothes, blah, 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 but they acquired these apps to be more of a service because now you can use Under Armour as a brand through your digital fitness and manage all of that in your lifestyle. And it just allows them to, again, be a part of your life more regularly. And that's, I think, the big trend we're seeing is marketing as a service.
Sort of like, did you see the way Ford is presenting itself at this conference as they create drivables?
Drivables?
Yeah, they're not a car manufacturer.
Yeah.
And
Ford Pass is another thing to look at, which has been a very interesting initiative that they've been doing as well that reflects this.
Yeah, there's kind of a human element I'm seeing, like the need maybe is people want to, we have all these digital tools that are available to us all the time, but when you talk about Alexa talking to you, well, you talk to people, you type on tools, and I wonder if one of the needs we kind of have, I wonder if there's fatigue of like, I want to talk to a person. I want to feel like I'm talking to a person with this chatbot, whether it's talking to Alexa.
No fatigue. Nobody wants to talk to a person.
No.
Not live, at least.
Not
I think it's generational, and I think it's simplified inputs, right? I think we could do like let me just do all this stuff on buttons or just type because it's much more natural.
And actually, these chatbots, right? I mean, this is glorified PBX calling in and saying, calling into the exchange and saying, press 1 for this, 2 for that, blah, blah, and then you finally get to like a person. But in this case, you're just, you're finally getting to someone who's like, okay, I can book that ticket for you, right? They're not that enhanced yet, right?
Yeah. They weed it down to where it gets to where you do need a person, right?
Yeah,
They can.
But again, I don't want to talk to that person, right? Right.
Yeah.
But if I can, I guess close out the question. I think Uber does a great job, and to kind of follow on the whole transportation theme that we were just talking about. They addressed the need of getting from point A to point B, and they've done it really, really well, right? And not only have they done it well, when they rolled it out, it was all about the black car, right? And I could see the car coming. It got there quick, amazing experience, clean, nice, beautiful, great. And everyone said, "Oh, this is fantastic." But you're probably not going to take a black car every day, are you, right? So then they rolled out UberX, right? So kind of, the same service, maybe a little bit toned down, but it's cheaper, and it's getting me from point A to point B. I can still see that car showing up. I don't have to talk to anyone, right? And the payment is all seamless behind the scenes.
I get so annoyed though. It keeps on pushing me to Uber Pool. I'm like, no, I don't want.
Well,
to
so that's I was just going to mention. But then other people say, well, this is great. I'd like to ditch my car, and I'd like to get to work every day, but I don't know if I can handle this UberX. And then boom, Uber Pool shows up, right? To give me that ability to get to work, get rid of my car, get rid of insurance, right? So they've done a great job addressing my need of getting from point A to point B. And actually, we just announced about a week or so back a partnership we have where we're now within the Uber app, you can actually earn loyalty, you can earn points. And for every 100 points you earn, you get a $10 ride credit. And the way that functions is actually by enabling what we call local offers within the experience. So actually this launched in LA and San Francisco, and within the app you can now essentially activate offers at retailers and restaurants. And if you go and spend at that retailer or at that restaurant, you earn points, because these merchants are looking for new customers, are looking for more transactions. And the cool part about it is all you have to do is simply activate it, because your payment card is already sitting there on Visa or sitting there on Uber, and essentially we just use that to listen to see if you go, you went and spent at Super Duper Burgers or Gap or whatever offer you activated. And as soon as that card is swiped or inserted or tapped at the retailer or restaurant, they get a notification from the Uber app saying you've just earned 37 points. So they addressed my transportation need, and now they've created a loyalty scheme to keep me engaged and keep me around and keep me using it more and more. So I think they've just done a fantastic job.
Yeah, and we covered that, I think, when you guys announced that on the 30th, or what it was, the 29th or the 30th.
Yeah.
But so let me make sure I understand. You guys kind of you partnered so that the behavior didn't have to change. People were already doing something, right? And it was easier for them to...
Yeah, I mean, we're allowing people to tap into everyday commerce to earn points and earn themselves free rides on the platform. And it's great for the merchants, because these are merchants that are looking for customers, right? And what we found on the Visa side is as people exited their Ubers within an hour or two, there's $2 billion worth of spend happening in and around these local communities, right? At retail, at restaurant. So we essentially created a platform that allowed merchants to kind of participate in that and help direct people to their specific locations.
Okay. I think that's a great example of a very innovative partnership, right? And that's really enabled by the whole mobile footprint.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that Visa is working with Uber, leveraging local offers and sort of that whole mobility thing, which is also going away from only engaging digitally, right? This is now people moving around and they're doing offline things, and they're benefiting through this kind of partnership. And I think that some of the new things that we're seeing is a real trend towards partnerships to really differentiate your offering.
Yeah, I mean, mobile can affect that 90+% of commerce that still happens in brick and mortar, right? And now we've created a way to actually provide that full attribution and know what's occurring.
Okay. Well, I want to skip to a question. This kind of segues
Sure.
to kind of something for Susie and Brian a little bit, because you kind of mentioned loyalty, and the reason you do this, you're trying to collect these points. You're trying to collect, right? You're trying to make all of your efforts be as beneficial to you as they can be. And so I wanted to, we've talked about airlines too, which is, when I think about loyalty programs, I'm like, I always think about airlines because I feel like they practically invented the concept. And it works really well, I think, because airline tickets are, they're expensive, and you want every dollar to kind of add up over time, and you really will pay attention to it, and you'll go through a lot of hoops because it's a lot of money on the line. But you're kind of mentioning, doing little things. And I know, Brian, your platform, and Susie, your platform of data can be in small increments. And so as a behavior, when we think about people doing these things, does the incentive have to be really big, or are you guys finding in data from your experiences that, no, little things will cause people to be loyal too? I want to know your thoughts.
Little things definitely work. I think most important is actually instant gratification. So, we've done campaigns with different marketers where, you watch a video ad, and at the end of it, you might get a little bit of a data reward, like 10 megs or 50 megs. And it's delivered to you instantly. There is no redemption process per se. And you get a text message back from your carrier saying you've just been rewarded this kind of data. And so I think that what we're finding in this day and age is that, especially for engagement on mobile, that sense of value exchange is really critical in order to make mobile successful for marketers. And I think Brian's company is all about sort of that instant gratification and also rewarding users.
Yeah, I think you said it right, and I think there's a difference between kind of reward programs that were designed kind of a while ago and then ones that are now new. And I think we have a huge opportunity today because everyone's connected, always on, and they have this super high expectation of instant gratification that you can actually get away with giving someone something smaller now so that you don't have to wait and have a sort of them accumulate things for a much bigger reward later, because the last thing they want to do is think of another thing to count towards. And one thing we learned was that the compiling of points is also a bit of an exclusionary reward mechanism because not everyone does that. And if you think about airlines or even any program that has points or status as part of it, really only 1% will benefit from this. The super elite, the ones that use it all the time. And then you have the casual users, the casual travelers, or the casual consumers. One of the antidotes we found there was this whole notion of surprise and delight, which I mentioned right at the very beginning, of serendipitously rewarding someone allows them to not necessarily peg it to, and you have the opportunity to reward someone with a bigger thing maybe that may be more in the early days of their customer journey with you, but you can qualify as potentially having high LTV for you, right? And so one of the things that we've also kind of picked up with all these examples, and I love out of our examples we're getting lessons, is the whole notion of letting the consumer live their life. Do what you're already doing. Don't do something new. I don't need you to go and sign up for some new things, download a new app, blah, blah, blah. We always advise, and we love seeing this whole model of just let the fish do their thing and then go to where the fish already are. And that's the key with a lot of these executions. So as long as you follow all those things, I know it's quite a long list, you have the ability to truly resonate with a always-on consumer. And that's why I like to distinguish between mobile and like an always-on and a connected consumer. I think we've started to say everything is more, and that's why it says everything connected. Our consumer is a connected consumer. Because a lot of the brands will go, well, this whole rewards-based model, sometimes they go, oh, well, only like teenagers do this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, listen.
Millennials.
Yeah, millennials
Only
or Gen Y or Gen Z, whatever generation we're in now that's allowed to own a smartphone. It's not about the age. It's about anyone who's always connected. And my parents have iPads, iPhones, Apple Watch, whatever. They have even higher expectations of stuff now. Like, why is my Amazon thing not delivering in like 30 minutes? And I'm like, that's crazy, right? Like, but that's an outcome that we've seen from the fact that everyone's now always connected.
Right.
And I think what we've also seen is that, when we're working with a lot of different brands, they've tried sort of like these point-based systems where you have to accumulate 10,000 points to redeem for a $5 Amazon gift card. And what they're finding is that users don't have the patience for it, right? And there's a huge drop-off in terms of user engagement because, once a person realizes they have to accumulate 10,000 points, they're like, well, I just got, 500 points, and now I have to do this like umpteen number of times in order to get that $5 gift card. It's not worth it.
So to give you some insights, like Chick-fil-A recently launched their mobile app. It's an ordering app as well. It's awesome. I have no vested interest in promoting it other than the fact that Chick-fil-A is awesome. They actually have a loyalty component baked in, but they call it treats. They don't have points associated with it. It's actually surprise and delight rewards associated with you just buying or consuming from Chick-fil-A. Taco Bell did this recently as well, and this is where I do have a vested interest because we powered this, is they have a loyalty program that rewarded you serendipitously, again, based on those transactions you did while you were on the go.
Okay, but wait, so you don't have a thermometer of like how many points you've earned? You don't have awareness of when I reach a threshold, or
You can have hints of what might instigate a reward per se, and there may be overall status. So there's certain markers along the way that I think are critical, and this is all part of reward program design. But all I'm saying is that there's a huge opportunity, if you are looking at rewards in the modern age, to change your approach in thinking and not just assume. And this is one quick thing I'll add is the funny thing is we know points because we grew up with that stuff, right? And we got educated to and by the way, it goes way back into the day of the S&H green stamps in the grocery stores. That's where loyalty points came from. And that's why we know. But if a consumer who's just starting to use their smartphone had no idea what that was or miles, why are we forcefully educating them on that whole concept? And this kind of, I think, has a nice segue to the overall understanding of this new generation that, like I mentioned about the conversational commerce piece with WeChat and whatnot, and even in advertising, this is one thing I always love to implore our brands, is I go, okay, a 13-year-old or 14-year-old that now has a smartphone had never, ever known of what a rollover banner ad on their desktop looks like. So why are you making that thing happen in the same form on a smaller screen? Right. You have an opportunity to completely change what the concept of ads is on a mobile device.
Right, and I think that's really important for the advertising world in general. You know, like we were talking about this before in terms of what we can learn from these people who are working with loyalty programs and immediate gratification and delivery of a loyalty point, is that if you try to expand that to brand advertising, what we're talking about is design and context. And I think that's where brand advertising is also going to need to go. It's going to need to really, try to concentrate much, much more carefully on what the context is when they're trying to deliver something, and then think about how that should be designed. Because we still are spending far too much time trying to take basically what are TV ads, some sort of storytelling entertainment, and try to put it into all of these different containers that now exist. So you have people talking about, let's say, about the 6 seconds or that sort of thing, and the sort of despair that it's accompanying, along that, with that, we don't have time to tell our story or that sort of thing. So I think one of the reasons I was happy to be on this panel is to learn from those folks who are doing this in microseconds and in conversational channels and all this sort of thing, and trying to figure out what the designs are that make those things work. And part of it, I think, is also in lock with context. That surprise and delight has everything to do with the context in which it's delivered. You couldn't deliver and do that same thing outside of the context in which it's designed for.
Thank you for bringing up time, because I think one of the things that folks, our brands now, are starting to realize more and more is the whole concept in the past of I need you to spend tons of time with me as a brand, right? Go to my microsite, get super immersed, watch all these videos. All this stuff is flipping on its head a bit in that in mobile, the measure of true brand effectiveness is impact in that contextual environment. And you could do one thing that happens over a course of 3 seconds, like or hopefully it's less than 3 seconds, give data, free data.
We can do it in
half a second. Like 0.002 seconds, whatever. Point is, that impact could probably be leave more of a lasting impression than a brand who's like, hey, I have this unavoidable pre-roll now that's going to run for 30 seconds before you do this thing. And it's creating detrimental effect, is the addiction to the reach and frequency and time spent with brands that I think has created, an unnecessary UX fail when I think it comes to brands in mobile.
Yeah, what is it they say? Sometimes you don't remember what someone says or what someone does, but you remember how they made you feel.
Yeah.
And so you may not remember all the details of what you're doing, but you remember, oh man, this was super fast.
Yeah.
This is painless.
I think that's a common theme here, in that what Brian does with his company is sort of like delight the user at those sort of surprising moments, right? And when you're surprised, you're going to remember it. I mean, like what we do is, when we delight the user with additional data and it comes instantly. And it's also frictionless, like the user actually didn't have to input their phone number or anything. It just kind of automatically happens. It's a bit of a delight and also a little bit of a shock, and people remember it. And so we've done surveys of users, after they've had this kind of an experience, and it's very positive towards the brand. And I think that, sort of surprise, something that's unpredictable, something that they're not necessarily expecting when it happens, is one way to really leave a lasting impression.
Okay, we're gonna leave it here and try to get a few questions in quickly before this is over. Does anybody have Anything they want to ask any of the panelists? Any questions? We've got a couple minutes left. So, anyone? Anything about data or personalization or technology?
Jay has a $10 bill for the first question.
I'll start dancing.
They all want lunch.
All right. Nothing at all?
Nobody has a question. I actually do have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Harry, do you need a microphone, sound guy? Okay. You're talking about data and all these, you guys buy up a bunch of frequencies for all the data that is used, okay? Everything in the internet is run on different frequencies, correct?
The wireless internet?
Frequencies.
Okay.
Okay, so when you guys are going to 5G, is that changing anything with what is going on right now? Does that add, are you guys just buying it up with a bulk load of frequencies to send all this internet data out wirelessly?
Susie, you are a little more of the data, and how data is delivered, a little bit of a technical.
Residential telecom expert.
Yeah, so, 5G is going to give you much higher throughput bandwidth, right? It doesn't necessarily give you like bigger allotments of data, but what higher speed does is it enables you to push more content, higher resolution content and more content to consumers. And with these devices with the larger screens, you end up actually consuming more content just because the stuff can now stream at you faster. And so, these data plans are going to have to start to also increase because the content is just going to be larger in volume.
I think it's also going to change the nature of mobile in the sense that it won't be so tied to just a thing like this. It's going to be all around you.
So does that mean, though, that since it's more coming through, that you are going to need more bandwidth, more frequency to send that?
Yeah, everything has to become fatter.
To correct, we're not the guys that are bidding on the frequencies.
Right.
So those are guys in the other room.
Right. You aren't the guys doing it, but it makes sense, right? That if it's going to be, you're going to need more bandwidth to send more of this stuff.
We love it when there's more bandwidth.
Okay.
And when there's faster stuff, because there's faster loading and the consumer has less of a poor user experience.
Okay. Actually, you know what? We're running out of time because we're going to move into our next session, and Jay, you're going to be moderating that.
Yep.
And it's going to be on harnessing mobile to create a better, more personal retail experience. And so, how about a big hand for the panel? And we'd like to.